Breaking news! If the reports coming out of Bengals training camp keep trending in this direction, Cincinnati could soon be facing one of the most important decisions of its offseason. One player is quietly putting together an outstanding camp, earning praise from inside the organization and turning heads every single practice. The excitement is real, but so is the price that may come with it. Before we break it all down, make sure you like the video, and I want to hear from Who Dey Nation. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your confidence level in the Bengals this season? Leave your rating in the comments. Now, let's get to what really matters. If there has been one player consistently generating positive buzz throughout Bengals training camp, it's Chase Brown. Expectations were already high coming into camp because of everything he showed previously. But according to the reports coming out of practice, he's doing even more than many people anticipated. Coaches, media members, teammates, and even Joe Burrow himself have taken notice of what Brown has been showing on the field. This is especially significant because Brown enters one of the most important stages of his career. His contract situation is becoming impossible to separate from his performance. Every impressive practice, every positive report, every sign of continued improvement only strengthens his position as discussions about his future with Cincinnati continue. One of the biggest developments from camp has been Brown's continued growth as a receiver. He was already considered one of the team's most productive receiving options, but the latest reports suggest another level of improvement has taken place during the offseason. According to reports highlighted during camp, Brown has been taking reps lined up out wide during practice. That immediately catches attention because it expands the ways Cincinnati can potentially use him within the offense. Rather than being limited to traditional running back responsibilities, Brown continues demonstrating the versatility that has become one of his biggest strengths. Joe Burrow also addressed Brown's development, specifically mentioning that he has improved as a pass catcher since last season. That's a meaningful statement coming directly from the Bengals quarterback, because no one understands better than Burrow how valuable, reliable receiving options can become within this offense. Brown had already established himself as one of Cincinnati's leading receivers, but hearing that he continues improving in that area suggests there may be even more available within his game. Reports indicate that while he has already been effective catching dump-offs and screens, there is growing belief that he can become even more dangerous by attacking linebackers through different routes. That possibility creates excitement because it adds another dimension to an offense already built around putting playmakers in space. Burrow also made another comment that speaks volumes about Brown's importance within the offense. While acknowledging that the Bengals naturally want to get the football into Jamar Chase's hands as often as possible, Burrow explained that Chase Brown is close behind because of how explosive he is whenever the ball reaches him. That statement says plenty about how Cincinnati views Brown's impact. The emphasis wasn't simply on running the football. It wasn't limited to catching passes. Instead, Burrow focused on what Brown can do once the football is actually in his hands. Whether the play begins as a handoff, a short reception, or another designed opportunity, the objective appears simple: create as many chances as possible for Brown to make defenders miss and generate explosive plays. That confidence from the quarterback only reinforces everything observers have been seeing throughout training camp. Brown continues making plays, he continues receiving praise, and he continues giving everyone another reason to believe his role within the offense could become even larger. Of course, every conversation about Brown eventually leads toward the contract situation. That subject has only become more interesting because of what's happening around the NFL. Current projections mentioned during the discussion placed Brown somewhere around a 4-year contract worth approximately $52 million. However, there was also acknowledgement that this projection may ultimately prove too low if Brown continues producing at his current level. The reasoning is straightforward. Every new running back contract influences the market. Every major extension establishes another comparison point. Every passing month potentially increases the cost. That's exactly why Brown's situation has become so fascinating. The longer negotiations remain unresolved, the greater the possibility that his market value continues climbing. Another major development arrived when Bijan Robinson reportedly agreed to a massive new contract extension. That deal immediately became part of the conversation surrounding Brown. Not because anyone claimed Brown deserves the exact same numbers, but because every significant running back contract becomes another reference point during future negotiations across the league. Once one player resets expectations, others naturally compare their situations against the latest market. That's why patience can become expensive. The discussion repeatedly returned to one simple reality. The running back market isn't standing still. It's moving. Contracts continue growing. New benchmarks continue appearing. And every additional extension potentially increases what future negotiations may require. Another important point raised throughout the discussion centered around Brown's own public stance regarding his future. The message attributed to Brown was consistent. He wants to remain in Cincinnati. He wants to reach an agreement. And according to previous comments referenced during the discussion, he also acknowledged that waiting longer would likely increase the overall cost. As training camp continues, that statement becomes even more interesting. Positive performances generate additional confidence. Positive reports increase attention. Positive momentum often strengthens negotiating positions. Meanwhile, Cincinnati faces difficult financial decisions beyond just Brown. Several other players were mentioned as extension candidates, including Dax Hill and DJ Turner. There was also discussion involving Dalton Risner as a possible dark horse candidate, along with Myles Murphy. Those situations matter because salary cap space is finite. The Bengals reportedly created additional flexibility after restructuring Joe Burrow's contract. But flexibility doesn't eliminate difficult choices. Eventually, priorities must be established. Every extension affects another potential extension. Every commitment influences future decisions. That's why Brown's contract discussion cannot be viewed in isolation. It exists alongside several other important roster decisions that Cincinnati must eventually address. One opinion expressed during the discussion suggested that instead of completing a long-term extension immediately, Cincinnati could ultimately choose to use the franchise tag on Brown. The reasoning behind that possibility focused less on Brown's ability and more on timing. With several contract decisions potentially approaching, using the franchise tag could provide the organization additional time before committing to a longer agreement. That remains only one possible outcome discussed during the analysis, but it highlights just how many moving pieces currently surround Brown's future. Even while those conversations continue, the football itself hasn't stopped. Training camp has continued producing highlights. One of the most notable defensive moments featured Brian Cook intercepting Joe Burrow and returning the play for a pick six during practice. The reaction reportedly energized everyone watching as Cook raced down the sideline. His performance became another reminder that training camp isn't only about offensive stars making plays. Defensive players continue creating momentum as well. The discussion also referenced Dexter Lawrence making disruptive plays against the offensive line during practice. Those moments reinforce the competitive environment developing throughout camp. Every day seems to feature another standout performance. Sometimes it's Burrow connecting with his receivers. Sometimes it's defensive playmakers creating turnovers. Sometimes it's Chase Brown continuing to attract attention because of his versatility and explosiveness. When everything is considered together, one clear theme emerges from training camp. The Bengals' biggest players continue making the biggest plays. That consistency is exactly what everyone wants to see at this stage of preparation. Rather than unexpected surprises carrying practices, many of the team's most important contributors continue validating the expectations surrounding them. And among those names, Chase Brown may be generating as much positive momentum as anyone. His versatility continues expanding. His receiving ability continues improving. His quarterback continues praising him. His role appears increasingly valuable. At the same time, every outstanding performance seems to raise another important question. What will Cincinnati ultimately decide regarding his future? Will both sides reach an extension before the market climbs even higher? Will negotiations continue while additional running back contracts reshape expectations across the league? Or will another solution eventually become necessary as the organization balances several major financial decisions? Those questions remain unanswered. What isn't being questioned right now is Brown's impact during training camp. Every new report seems to reinforce the same conclusion. He's making plays, he's earning praise, he's expanding his game, and he's giving the Bengals every reason to keep finding ways to get the football into his hands. Now, the attention shifts toward what happens next, because every impressive practice not only strengthens excitement for the upcoming season, but also increases the importance of one of Cincinnati's biggest contract decisions. What do you think the Bengals should do? Would you sign Chase Brown to a long-term extension now, or would you wait and see how everything unfolds? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is only getting started. Who Dey?